What's going on, Dolphins fans? It's Connor from the Dolphins Dive, and in today's video, we're going to be previewing the Dolphins vs. Broncos game, which is coming up this Sunday. Without further ado, we're going to hop right into today's video talking about the Dolphins offense versus the Broncos defense, and we're going to start using our statistics. It's still early in the season, so you can't put too much weight on it, but we're still going to break it down. There's still some substance to it because they played the games. So the Dolphins' offense is third in points per game, so one of the best offenses in all of football. Broncos' defense is 24th in points per game under defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, former Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator. Dolphins are first in passing yards per game, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Last year, we were probably on pace for that before the Tua injury. Broncos are 22nd in passing yards allowed, so big discrepancy there. Dolphins are going to look to continue their passing attack. Even if Jalen Waddle doesn't play, he's currently questionable, if I had to guess. He practiced today, but is still in protocol, so I feel like it's unlikely he plays. So look for River Craycraft and Braxton Berrios to step up in his role. Dolphins are 15th in rushing yards per game, and Broncos are 11th in rushing yards allowed. So the Dolphins, I feel like, are inflated because of the New England game, which they played a very unconventional style of defense, playing three safeties over top, and that's why the Dolphins look to take advantage. And Mike McDaniel doesn't seem too committed to run the ball unless they want to give him a look like that. So I feel like if we come out in a run-heavy personnel, the Broncos are going to have personnel to match that. That's usually what teams do. So it should be interesting. Do the Broncos try and take from what Bill Belichick did? It obviously didn't really have much success because we were able to run the ball on it, but who knows? But Mike McDaniel tends to not like to run the ball if they come out in fronts that are designed to stop the run, which kind of makes sense. But at the same time, my first key of the game is to establish the run, even if they're trying to stop it. As exciting as it is, I don't think it's the best formula to win the game when you have Tua passing over 50 times. Obviously, we can do it, but I just feel like you want to limit how much you rely on your quarterback to pass that often. Get the ground game established. It obviously helps play action. You don't need it to actually be able to execute play action. I mean, we saw in the Chargers game, linebackers were biting heavy on play action even though we weren't having success running the ball, but it's always good to get the ground game going. Looks like Savon Ahmed's going to be questionable, if not out. So Devon Achane is going to have his first serious snaps playing in this game, so it should be interesting to see how the young guy does. But what else to look out for on offense? Really, just continue doing what they're doing. Should be interesting to see how those other guys step up in Waddle's role if he isn't ready to go. But other than that, really, just continue doing what you're doing. Tua's playing at an extremely high level. The offensive line's playing great. I'd like to mention, though, the offensive line doing good is a lot to do with the fact of how quickly Tua's getting the ball out of his hand. So it should be interesting just to continue to evaluate if there's a couple times where Tua holds on to the ball for normal quarterback times, which is 2 to 3 seconds, how the pass protection holds up. But so far they've looked good, especially in the run game. I've broken some plays down. I've made some YouTube shorts. I've posted on the Twitter, which is the Dolphins Dive. I know above me says differently, but should just be interesting to continue to evaluate. But I hope the Broncos defense isn't anything special. I hope the Dolphins look to continue their offensive prowess they've shown throughout the season against a good New England defense too. The Patriots always have a high-level defense, but some Bronco defensive players just to keep an eye on, just to get yourself familiarized. Jonathan Cooper, who's one of their edge rushers, surprisingly good. I'm not going to act like I know everything. I didn't fully know who he was heading into my research, but he's one of their best edge players based off the numbers and whatnot. Randy Gregory, who they obviously got from the Cowboys, hasn't had the best starts of the season, but he's obviously an impact player, getting paid a lot of money. Josie Jewell is one of their linebackers who's basically a three-down backer. He's very good. He can play the run and the pass. I remember him from when we first played him when Vic Fangio was the head coach, and he's still there, still playing at a good level, so shout out to him, so I'm going to keep an eye on. Pat Surtain, who obviously is the son to the Pat Surtain that coached on the Dolphins last year. And there's a funny McDaniel press conference moment, but obviously one of the best corners in all of football. Should be interesting to see him live in action and how they try to utilize him against the Dolphins. And that's a potential matchup. If Waddle's out, you really they can afford to maybe play a different style than if we had both top receivers, because obviously the threat, if you try and double team or triple team Hill, then you have Waddle, but the threat of a Barrios or Craycraft is nowhere near the threat of a Waddle. So it should be interesting to see, like, do they put Surtain and safety help on Tyreek and then, like, have everyone singled up, or how they try and stop the Dolphins' offense? Should be interesting to see. If Waddle's not going and they have one of the best corners in all of football, how they try and match that up. And then Justin Simmons, obviously perennial Pro Bowler. He is questionable, though, so he might not be playing. He's one of the best safeties in the league, so it should be interesting to see. Now on to the Broncos offense versus the Dolphins defense. And the Broncos offense has been one of the best offenses in football. I think they have the most points per drive in all football, but based off these numbers, obviously they're not getting the ball as much. They're 15th in points per game. Dolphins defense is 20th. A great bounce back in week 2 from the Dolphins defense. Obviously against a much less skilled unit, but still impressive to see what they did. Broncos are 13th in passing yards per game. The Dolphins are 13th in passing yards allowed, so pretty evenly matched. The Dolphins passing defense, honestly, has been a big strong suit in my opinion. There really hasn't been, knock on wood, any big plays let up. Like, obviously there's every offense is going to make plays, but they haven't really gotten beat over top, which is great to see, especially in this style of defense where that's the design. So there's been no coverage bust, which I like to see. Broncos are 14th in rushing yards per game. The Dolphins are 28th in rushing yards allowed. Still bouncing back from week 1. Week 2, though, the rushing defense was much improved, so that number's a little inflated, but like I said, it's still early in the season. It's going to happen. So into the defensive keys, same as always, stop the run. I don't expect this to be too much of an issue. They showed great improvement last week. I think it's schematic related as well, because the way they defended the run week 2 was different than how they did week 1. So hopefully they can just not get gashed. Like, in this kind of defense, when Vic Fangio wants to play 2 safeties up top, you're going to be able to let up run plays for 4 to 5 yards. But as long as you don't let big ones get broken off, you can hold them. Like, if it's a 2nd and 5, you can hold them to still being a 3rd down. I have confidence that Vic Fangio is going to be able to do that. The next key is get after the quarterback. Russell Wilson's one of the most pressured quarterbacks in all football. Despite getting upgrades this offseason in the offensive line, their offensive line has been a disappointment for them. Like, Mike McGlinchey is a guy I wanted the Dolphins to go after. He's had a rough couple of games for them, but I mean, he's a great player. I expect that to not stay the same, but hopefully the Dolphins can take advantage of that and get after the passer without even necessarily having to blitz. Last week we blitzed a lot. I'd like to see us go back to more of a occasional blitzing. I feel like we were blitzing Mac Jones all the time, which I trust Vic Fangio's scheme. If he's blitzing every play, awesome. If he's not, awesome. I feel like it's most beneficial where you might send 5, 6, and then the next play, like the next situation like that, you drop 8. Like, just mix and matching that, I think is the best kind of way to run defense. Obviously, Vic Fangio is a master, and each game plan is going to be different. Obviously, against the Chargers, you saw he really only blitzed on occasion, and then last week against Mac Jones, he blitzed a lot. So mixing it up, I think, is the best way to go about it. But hopefully we can just get pressure with 4 guys if their offensive line's been underperforming as it has. And then the last thing is just keep playing sound coverage on the back end of the defense, which they've been doing so far throughout this season. Love to see that continued into week 3. Players to watch for the Broncos offense, obviously Russell Wilson has had a down year last year. He's looking much better this season. Obviously, they're 0-2, but Russ seems to be playing at a pretty solid level. It should be interesting to see how he plays in week 3. I like Russell Wilson. I know he gets a lot of criticism. I mean, there's criticism around him, though, doesn't really make sense. Like, as a player, sure, you can criticize his playing, but, like, that guy's a good dude. And I got a lot of respect for him. So hopefully he's able to have a solid season. Hopefully we beat him, though, so I don't want him to do good against us, but rooting for him as an individual. Marvin Mims, who is I don't know if he was an undrafted rookie, but he's at least a rookie for them who's been balled all of training camp, and he's had a great start to the season. They got Jerry Jeudy back, who's another guy to keep an eye on. Cortland Sutton's been having a solid year. Javonte Williams, who he's got like probably half their snaps at running back, still coming off that ACL injury, so he's getting eased back in. But always a guy to keep an eye on. He's a great player, so you never know when it's going to finally click and he's fully recovered. So it's just guys to keep the eye on. But for my prediction time, Dolphins 2-0 on the season. I'm 2-0 predicting the Dolphins to win. I'm 13-6 dating back to last year, so that's pretty good. Over double right than wrong. I got the Dolphins moving on to 3-0, defeating the Denver Broncos 34-20. Comment down below, though. What's your score predictions? And that's it for today's video. I appreciate all the love and support. Like and subscribe to help the channel grow. And until next time, I'll catch y'all.